undergrowth, destroying the understory, and starving to death, and meanwhile depleting all of the habitat of the ground birds who no longer eat all the ticks, and then you get all the deer get infested with ticks, and you get Lyme disease everywhere. And if I go and lie out on the natural places I used to lie out on as a kid, and I get up an hour later, I could be covered with ticks. And when I was a kid, no one ever got a tick. And so we're learning that our health is, we are only as healthy as the health of all beings. And it's not only that, it's not only dependency that we're learning, but it's interbeingness that which we can feel, when you read about a species going extinct, or a dam going up that floods a whole valley, or you watch a picture of mountaintop removal or fracking, and the damage that it causes. I think everybody feels pain from that. Like, why? It's because those beings that are being harmed are part of ourselves. On an existential level, they are us too. And so we're walking around with these wounds that we can't name. Whether or not we read about it on the news, what's happening in Japan is a wound. The earth is wounded. I mean, it's hemorrhaging these toxic substances, like a suppurating tumor, And it's something we feel whether we know about it or not. And therefore we are walking around hurting all the time, but so used to it that we don't even know what it's like to not hurt. And that's good for business, because then we want to buy things to keep our minds off the pain. And we desperately crave entertainment and anything to make it stop hurting. So this inner beingness is something we can feel. And we can't abide living in the world with a separate self anymore. More and more, everybody in every generation, if we find ourselves doing something that doesn't contribute to the health and well-being of other beings, then it hurts to be doing that thing, And there's pressure, though, to do it, money pressure, for example. So you have a lot of people in college, on the one hand, there's either you're conscious of it or it's a secret, even to yourself. There's something really beautiful that you want to do in the world. Maybe you don't know what it is, but there's this desire. Most teenagers will at some point they'll say, I'm not going to be a sellout. There's kind of this integrity, and this feeling of magnificence. I'm here for something magnificent. And the world's not supposed to be this way. I refuse to go along with it. I'm never going to sell out. There's this feeling. And then, on the other hand, there's pressure. Well, but maybe I better major in business. Maybe I better major in finance because it's practical. Now, how many people are really, really that interested in, how many accounting majors love accounting?
I know one.
Some do, yeah. And I think in a beautiful world there is a place for accountants. But
in the late 1970s, I think it was 1978, Penn State had a symposium. What is the role of the liberal arts in higher education? Because everybody was saying, you get a liberal arts degree, and what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Well, curiously enough, when you get a liberal arts degree, you can do damn near anything with it. If you as an individual know how to apply what you've learned. And studies that were done, and they had people who came in from industry who said the following: yeah, we hired somebody with a business degree, and we hired this, and we hired somebody with a liberal arts degree, and we found the person with the business degree knew a lot about one thing. But the person with the liberal arts degree said, hey, I can write about this, and I can have the knowledge to go in and learn about this, and they were the ones who got better and better at their jobs, as opposed to the accountant who sat there and said, gee, here are my assets, here are my liabilities, I want them to balance, and we're going to figure out how. But boy, I don't know how to tell anybody what I'm doing.
Yeah. So anyway, the
So where can you get a liberal arts degree today?
Not many places, although Penn State still tries it.
Green Mountain College is really good in Vermont.
yeah,
Probably Evergreen State University in Olympia, Washington.
I teach at Goddard College now. Actually,
You know,
have almost nothing but liberal arts degrees.
but
Yeah,
Which college?
Goddard,
Got it.
St. John's,
St. John's would be
which one?
Annapolis or Santa Fe.
And I
There's
was
a lot-
thinking St. John's, New York, and I knew that wasn't the.
A lot of small colleges
Have that.
have a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, people.
Those liberal arts colleges.
Yeah. But while there are some people who are majoring in accounting just because they just love it so much, But most people are doing it not out of this deep desire, but because it's kind of a compromise, and maybe I can learn to like it, and I'm good at math, or whatever. But even when they do that, they will unconsciously sabotage themselves by being lazy, procrastinating, getting sick, getting hurt, drinking a lot, because they don't really want to do it. They have to make themselves do it. And then you get people in the baby boom generation, people in their 50s, who have a midlife crisis because they realize. Now, I had this happen to me when I was 28, but they realize, I'm living somebody else's life. I'm living a life that I was paid to live. And what about my life? Like, when do I get to? This is a feeling I had when I was 28. I was working in Taiwan, and I was in a meeting with some people at a software company. I was going to help them localize their software into English and stuff. And they were talking about new product features and things like that. And the discussion was very animated and excited. And I said, I've had this realization that I didn't care. But they looked like they cared. And I was like, you mean you guys actually care about this? Because I'm only pretending to care because I'm being paid to care. But I don't really care about it. Why would I care about 3D sound and your market share? I mean, come on. Like, why would I care about that? And why did they care about that? Because they thought they were going to make money. But did they actually really care if, B. Young's market share was higher than Ulead's market share? Like, and so it was, at first I felt like kind of a little bit of superiority, I get it and they don't, this kind of cynicism. And cynicism is like this protection, it says, here I am doing things I don't truly care about, but at least I know that the world sucks, And, but after that cynicism passed, then I just panicked because I was like, when do I get to live my life? When do I get to do something I actually care about? Why am I here on Earth? I didn't have a story then, the new story of the connected self, for example, or the new story of the world that says humanity is here to love Earth and to be a co-creative partner with Earth. I didn't have these new stories to answer that question, or to help me answer that question, what am I here for? All I knew is that I wasn't here for this. And I meet a lot of people like that. When I was at the airport one time, I was riding the shuttle from the airport to the parking lot, and the driver was from some country, like, I don't remember where. And I asked him, like, I wouldn't necessarily, like, pick at someone's wound like this, but at this particular instance it seemed appropriate to ask him, do you ever get the feeling that you weren't put here on Earth to shuttle people back and forth to their car? And he's like, yeah, man, tell me about it. Like, is any human being here to do that? Is any human being here to be a hotel maid? Is any human being here to be, I mean, not just menial jobs, but like I had a friend who was a computer security expert, and he said, "Yeah, my job is to convince people to buy security systems that they don't need. That's my job. Like, is anyone put here on earth to do that? You know, you have this precious life, and people, even if they don't, even if they can't put it into words, there's that feeling. I wasn't put here on earth to do this. That it's a valid feeling, but we have a whole ideology that says, "Oh, come on, you know, this is just the way the world is. You have to be practical, and who do you think you are?"